Have you ever wondered if winning the lottery would really change your life for the better? I used to believe it would. I thought all my problems would be solved with a few million in the bank. And in a way, I'm right. The money was an incredible blessing that transformed my life in ways I never imagined. But what nobody tells you is that the people around you can become your biggest nightmare. Envy disguised as love, greed masked as concern, lies wrapped in fake smiles. My name is Michael Thompson. I'm 38 years old, and 2 years ago, I won $287 million in the Powerball. This is the story of how wealth freed me from a life of hardship, but almost destroyed me because of those I loved most. A story about discovering who really has your back when you have everything to lose. Before I start my story, subscribe to the channel and comment below which city and country you're watching from. You won't believe the journey I'm about to tell. I'll start from the beginning. When I was just another American struggling to survive in the working class, in 2022, I lived in Detroit, Michigan, in a small house I inherited from my grandmother in the Brightmoor neighborhood. I worked as a welder in a Ford factory for 15 years, earning about $52,000 a year, a decent salary, but one that barely covered basic bills and the constant repairs that my house from 1960 required. I had been divorced for 3 years. Sarah, my ex-wife, had left me claiming that I didn't have enough ambition. She wanted more from life, a house in the suburbs, new cars, Caribbean vacations. I wanted stability and a family. Apparently, that wasn't enough for her. She took our 8-year-old daughter, Emma, to live in Grand Rapids with her new boyfriend, an insurance salesman who made twice what I made. Seeing my daughter only on alternating weekends was the most painful part of my life. Emma was my reason for existing, my motivation to keep waking up every morning at 5:30 to face another day on the production line. My family didn't make things easier. My older brother David was a doctor in Chicago and always made a point of reminding me of the difference between our lives. Mike, you need to think about Emma's future. With that welder's salary, how are you going to pay for her college? My sister Jennifer, married to an engineer in Boston, had a more subtle way of making me feel small. Of course you can come spend Christmas with us, Mike. Don't worry. We know you can't contribute much to the gifts. And there was my mother, Margaret, who at 68 still worked part-time as a secretary to supplement her retirement. She lived alone in an apartment in Warren, and I knew she struggled not to ask me for financial help, even when she needed it. She was too proud to admit that sometimes she had to choose between medications and the heating bill. It was thinking about my mother and Emma that I started playing Powerball religiously. Every Saturday after visiting Emma, I would stop at the corner gas station and buy my ticket. Always the same numbers: 07, 1420, 335, 47, and Powerball 18. They were numbers that had meaning to me: Emma's birthday, my mother's birthday, my own birthday. The station owner, a Lebanese immigrant named Hassan, always joked with me, "One day, Mike, you're going to get rich and forget about us little people." I laughed, but secretly believed it could happen. It was my only hope of giving Emma a better life and taking care of my mother as she deserved. Years passed, and nothing happened. The routine continued: work, empty house, weekends with Emma when Sarah allowed it, and always that feeling of just surviving, never really living. My coworkers talked about retirement, but at 36, I knew I'd probably work until I died. The situation worsened at the end of 2021, when the factory announced staff cuts. I kept my job, but many friends were laid off. The atmosphere at work became tense, everyone afraid of being next. That's when Sarah decided she wanted to restrict my visits with Emma even more, claiming I was unstable and that the uncertainty of my job could affect our daughter. That broke my heart. The possibility of seeing Emma even less was unbearable. It was on one of those lonely nights in January 2022. I almost stopped playing Powerball. Almost. But something inside me insisted on continuing. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was faith. It was probably both. On March 15th, 2022, everything changed. It was a Saturday, and I had just dropped Emma off at Sarah's house after a wonderful weekend. We had gone to the Detroit Zoo, and she had told me about her plans to be a veterinarian when she grew up. On the way home, I stopped at Hassan's station as I always did. "The usual numbers, Mike?" he asked. "The usual numbers, Hassan." I got home around 7 in the evening and almost forgot about the drawing. I was watching a Detroit Lions game when I remembered. I grabbed my ticket and waited for the drawing to start on TV. The first number, 07. My heart jumped. The second, 14. My hands started to sweat. The third, 23. It couldn't be. The fourth, 35. I was trembling. The fifth, 47. My God. And finally, the Powerball. 18. All the numbers. All my numbers. For a moment, the world stopped. I looked at the ticket, then at the TV, then at the ticket again. There was no doubt. I had hit all the Powerball numbers. The jackpot had been accumulating for 15 drawings and had reached $287 million. $287 million. My first reaction wasn't uncontrolled. Joy, it was total shock. I sat on the couch and stared at the ticket for about 15 minutes, unable to process what was happening. Then I got up and started walking around the house, running my hands through my hair, trying to understand that my life had completely changed in a matter of seconds. The first person I called was my mother. It was almost 11 at night, but I couldn't wait. "Mike, what happened? Is everything okay?" "Mom, I won." "Won what, son?" "I won the Powerball. $287 million. Silence on the other end of the line. Then a deep breath. "Michael Thompson, are you kidding me?" "No, Mom. I'm looking at the ticket now. I've checked 10 times. It's real." I heard her start crying on the other end. They weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief from a woman who had spent her entire life worrying about money and suddenly saw all those worries disappear. That night I couldn't sleep. I stayed researching on the internet about lottery winners, about how to claim the prize, about investments. My mind was racing, planning everything I would do: a new house for my mother, an education fund for Emma, maybe even a foundation to help other unemployed welders. The money was a blessing, a pure and simple blessing that would give me the freedom to be the father and son I always wanted to be. The problem wouldn't be the money. The problem would be the people. On Monday, I went to the Powerball office in Lansing to claim my prize. I decided on the lump sum option, which after taxes would give me about $175 million net. Still, an amount that would change not just my life, but that of several generations of my family. The news leaked quickly. Even trying to keep it discreet, my name appeared in local newspapers. Detroit welder wins $287 million in Powerball. Suddenly, I was a local celebrity. That's when everything started to fall apart with my family, David. My doctor brother was the first to call me. The conversation started normally. "Congratulations, what incredible luck. We're all very happy for you." But after a few minutes, the tone changed. "Mike, I was thinking, you're going to need help managing all this. I know some excellent financial consultants here in Chicago. How about if I take care of your investments? You know doctors understand money." Something in his tone bothered me. It wasn't a genuine offer of help. It was an attempt at control. "Thanks, David, but I'm already talking to some professionals here. Professionals from Detroit. Mike, you need to think big now. Chicago has the best investment firms in the country." When I politely refused, I noticed a coldness in his voice that I had never noticed before. Jennifer was even more subtle, but equally disturbing. She called me crying, saying how happy she was for me, but then started talking about the financial difficulties she and her husband were facing, the mortgage on the new house they had bought. "I'm not asking for anything. Mike, I just wanted you to know that sometimes it's hard for us too. But we're so happy that now you can help the family when we need it." Help the family. As if it were my obligation now, the most shocking reaction came from Sarah. She called me 3 days after the news came out in the newspaper. "Mike, need to talk about Emma." "What about Emma?" "Well, now that your situation has changed, I think it would be better if she spent more time with you. Actually, I was thinking if you wouldn't like to have real joint custody." "Joint custody?" The same thing I had begged for years and that she always denied, claiming I couldn't offer Emma stability. Now, magically, I could. Sarah, are you serious? Of course. I always thought Emma should spend more time with her father. And now, you can give her opportunities that ... Well, that you couldn't before. The hypocrisy made me nauseous. She didn't want Emma to spend more time with me. She wanted access to my money through our daughter. But the worst. Disappointment came from my own mother. A week after winning, I went to visit her at the apartment in Warren. She seemed different, more animated, more talkative. At first, I thought it was genuine joy about our change of fortune. Mike, son, I've been thinking a lot about all this, she said while making coffee. You know, I've never been one to ask for anything. But now that God has blessed us, ... my stomach contracted. I was thinking that maybe it was time for me to stop working. And that apartment in Grass Point that we always admired when you were a child. Well, now it would be possible, wouldn't it? Grass Point, one of Detroit's most expensive neighborhoods. And you know, Mike, your sister Jennifer has always been so good to me. I think it would be fair if you helped with her mortgage. It's family, isn't it? There it was. Even my mother, the person I most respected in the world, was seeing me as a walking bank. The money had freed me from a life of financial hardship, given me the chance to be the father Emma deserved and the son my mother needed. But the people around me had transformed into greedy strangers who saw dollar signs instead of my eyes. It was just the beginning of my journey to discover who really cared about me and who only cared about my bank account. In the following months, I painfully learned that winning the lottery is like applying a character test to everyone you know, and most fail miserably. The first big fight happened during Thanksgiving. Jennifer had insisted that the whole family gather at her house in Boston to celebrate our blessing. I should have noticed the trap when she mentioned she had invited some close friends to join us. I arrived with Emma, who now spent half the weekends with me, thanks to Sarah's new perspective on parenting, and immediately noticed something was wrong. The table was set for 15 people, not just for family. Jennifer greeted me with an exaggerated hug and introduced me to the friends: a real estate broker, an investment consultant, an accountant, and their respective wives. Mike, these are wonderful people who can really help you manage your new situation, said Jennifer, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. During dinner, I was bombarded with unsolicited financial advice. The real estate broker insisted I should buy commercial property in Boston. The investment consultant tried to convince me to transfer my funds to his company. Everyone talked as if they had a right to my money, as if it were natural that I would want to do business with strangers in the middle of a family dinner. The worst moment was when David stood up to make a toast. I'd like to toast my brother Mike, who finally found his way in life. It's funny how luck can change everything, isn't it? I hope he's wise enough to listen to those who love him and have more experience with money. That finally found his way hit me like a punch to the stomach. As if my previous life had no value, as if I had only become a person worthy of respect after winning the lottery. Emma, sitting next to me, asked quietly, "Daddy, why is everyone being so weird?" That question from a 9-year-old made me realize how absurd the situation had become. I got up from the table. You know what, everyone? I came here to spend Thanksgiving with my family, not for a business meeting. Emma and I are leaving. Mike, you're being dramatic, said Jennifer. We're just trying to help you. Help me, or help yourselves. The silence that followed was embarrassing. I took Emma and we left. In the car, she asked me, "Daddy, is winning the lottery a bad thing?" No, princess. Winning the lottery is a wonderful thing. But sometimes people get weird when you have money. I like you better the way you always were at that moment. With my 9-year-old daughter giving me a life lesson, I realized that at least one person in my life loved me for who I was, not for what I had. Things got worse at Christmas. My family had organized a celebration at the new house I bought for my mother in Grass Point, an $800,000 mansion that she had chosen, and that, honestly, was much bigger than she needed. But I wanted to see her happy. I wanted to make up for all the years she spent worrying about money. When I arrived with Emma, I found a scene that left me stunned. David was in the kitchen arguing with Jennifer about who should manage Mike's expenses. My mother was on the phone with someone, talking about a trip to Europe she wanted to take now that we can afford it. But what shocked me most was finding Sarah in the living room, browsing through catalogs of very expensive private schools. "What are you doing here, Sarah?" "Your mother invited me. She thought it would be good to discuss Emma's future now that circumstances have changed." "What circumstances?" "Mike, Emma should be at Cranbrook Schools. It's one of the best private schools in Michigan. It costs $50,000 a year, but now you can afford it. $50,000 a year. For a 9-year-old child, Emma is fine at the public school where she is, but now she can have the best. Don't you want to give the best to your daughter?" That phrase, "don't you want to give the best to your daughter," would become the refrain I would hear constantly. As if loving my daughter automatically meant spending fortunes on her. As if not giving her everything money can buy was a form of neglect. The discussion heated up when David joined the conversation. "Sarah is right. Mike, Emma needs to be surrounded by people of her class now. You can't keep her in a public school as if you were still a poor welder." "I still am a welder." "David, just a welder with money." "No, you're not. You're a rich man now. It's time to act like one." That's when I exploded. "You know what's funny? For years, you treated me like I wasn't good enough. David, you always made me feel like a failure for working with my hands. Jennifer, you always implied I couldn't contribute adequately to family gatherings. Sarah, you told me I didn't have enough ambition and left me. And Mom, ... I looked at her with tears in my eyes. You raised me to value honesty and humility, but now you're planning a life of luxury as if it were your right." "Mike, you're being unfair," said my mother. "I've always worked hard. I deserve some comfort now." "You deserve it, yes. But $50,000 a year for Emma's private school? Trips to Europe? Mansions? That's not comfort. It's extravagance. And you're all acting like it's my obligation to finance everyone's luxury dreams." "It's your family," Mike said Jennifer. "Family helps each other. Family helps each other, yes. But this isn't help. This is exploitation." I took Emma and we left my own family's Christmas party. In the car, she was quiet, processing everything she had witnessed. "Daddy, why is everyone fighting? How do you explain to a child that the people she loved had become greedy? How do you say that money was revealing the worst character in the people around us? Sometimes, princess, when someone gets rich, the people around them get confused about what really matters in life. Did money change you too, Daddy?" The question made me pull over to the side of the road. I looked at my daughter through the rearview mirror. "What do you think?" "I think you're still the same daddy. You still take me for pizza on Friday nights. We still watch movies on the couch. You still play with me at the park. The only difference is that now our house is bigger, and you don't worry when something breaks." My 9-year-old daughter had just given me the wisest perspective on my situation. The money had given me freedom, security, and opportunities, but hadn't changed who I fundamentally was. The problem wasn't with me. It was with the unrealistic expectations and greed of the people around me. It was at that moment that I made a decision that would change everything. I would establish clear boundaries about how my wealth would be shared, and whoever didn't respect those boundaries would be cut from my life, family or not. The first person to test my new boundaries was David. 2 weeks after Christmas, he showed up at my house unannounced. "Mike, we need to talk man to man." "About what?" "About your responsibility to the family. You want an obscene amount of money, and you're being selfish." "Selfish?" "Jennifer is going through real financial difficulties. Her mortgage is $8,000 a month, and her husband is having problems at work. Mom deserves to travel and enjoy the years she has left. And Emma? Emma should have access to the best opportunities money can buy. David, in the last 10 months, I paid for Mom's new house, bought her a new car. I'm paying all medical expenses that her insurance doesn't cover. For Jennifer, I already paid $20,000 in credit card debts and offered help with the mortgage if she really needs it. Emma has a $5 million education fund that will guarantee she can. Study at any university in the world. But you could do more. I could, David. But I'm not obligated to. We're family. Exactly. We're family. Not a charity foundation. Not a bank. Family. He looked at me with an anger I had never seen before. You know, this money isn't really yours, right? It was luck. Pure luck. You didn't work for it, didn't study for it, didn't strive for it. And now you're acting like you're some kind of financial genius. Those words hit me deeply, not because they were true, but because they revealed what he really thought of me. In David's mind, I didn't deserve my good fortune. You're right, David. It was luck. But you know what else was luck? Having a family that supported me when I was just an ordinary welder. Now I've discovered that support was conditional. You loved me less when I had less money, and now you resent me for having more. That's not true, isn't it? Then tell me something. When was the last time you asked me how I am? Not financially, emotionally. When was the last time Jennifer called me just to chat without mentioning money? When was the last time Mom showed interest in my life beyond how much I can spend on her? David fell silent. Money gave me many wonderful things. David, it gave me security, freedom, the chance to be a better father to Emma. But you gave me the most valuable lesson of all. You taught me the difference between people who love me and people who love what I can do for them. It was the last real conversation we had. David left my house that day, and our relationship never recovered. The year 2023 brought what I would call the great test. It was when I discovered who really cared about me versus who cared about my bank account. The process was painful, but necessary. The first positive surprise came from Hassan, the gas station owner where I bought my Powerball tickets. One morning when I stopped to fill up my new car, a Tesla Model S, I had bought more for practicality than ostentation, he called me aside. Mike, my friend, can I give you some advice? Of course, Hassan. Be careful with people who suddenly became your best friends. In my country, we have a saying, gold tests fire. But fire tests man, and wealth tests the heart of man. Hassan had arrived in the United States 20 years ago with only $1,000 in his pocket and built a small empire of 3 gas stations. He understood as much about money as about human character. Do you want something from me, Hassan? He laughed loudly. I want you to keep coming here to buy gas and talking to me about baseball. That's all. You're the same good person you always were. Don't let them tell you otherwise. That conversation made me realize there were genuine people in my life. They just weren't necessarily the ones I expected. The second surprise came from a completely unexpected place. My supervisor at Ford, a tough guy named Tony Castellano. Even though I had stopped working after winning the lottery, I kept in touch with some colleagues. Tony called me on a Saturday afternoon. Thompson, I need to see you. Can you stop by the shop? When I arrived, I found Tony fixing an old Mustang in his spare time. Sit there, he said, without stopping work. I heard your family is giving you a hard time about the money. Who told you that? Man, Detroit is a small town when it comes to gossip. But listen here, I worked with you for 15 years. You're one of the most decent guys I've ever met. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for being lucky in life. Tony never asked me for a penny. Not even when I found out his wife was undergoing chemotherapy and the medical costs were breaking the family. When I offered help, he politely refused. I appreciate the offer, Mike, but we can manage. If you ever want to invest in an independent shop, let me know. I'd like to work with you as a partner, not as a charity beneficiary. That was the difference. Tony saw me as an equal. Even with me having $175 million and him struggling to pay medical bills. Meanwhile, family problems intensified. Jennifer started sending me weekly emails detailing her financial needs. Not direct requests for money, but elaborate lists of expenses she couldn't cover alone. Therapy for the children, $10,000 a year. Home renovations, $50,000. Educational vacations in Europe, $20,000. The most manipulative was how she ended these emails. Of course, I'm not asking for anything directly. Mike, Just sharing our family's difficulties so you're aware of the situation? I know you'd do anything to help if you could. David developed an even worse strategy. He started using Emma as emotional leverage. He would call her directly, a 9-year-old child, to talk about special opportunities for privileged children. He talked about expensive riding schools, piano lessons with renowned teachers, exclusive summer programs. Uncle David said I could learn French at a school in Switzerland this summer, Emma told me after one of these calls. He said, you have enough money to send me anywhere in the world. The manipulation of a child made me furious. I called David immediately. If you call my daughter one more time to discuss money, I'll get a restraining order against you. Mike, you're being paranoid. I just want the best for my niece. You want to use my daughter to pressure me into spending money in ways you approve. Stop it now. You're depriving Emma of opportunities that any rich father would give his daughter. I'm protecting Emma from becoming a spoiled and arrogant child. She'll have all the opportunities she needs. But I won't raise a person who thinks she deserves everything just because she can afford it. This philosophy was tested when Emma turned 10. Sarah suggested a birthday party on the Detroit Princess, a luxury boat with 100 guests and professional entertainment. The budget, $25,000. Sarah, that's ridiculous. She's 10 years old, but Mike, now you can afford it. Why not give her a party she'll never forget? Because I want her to remember the party for the happy moments, not for how much it costs. We had the party at Chuck E. Cheese, like we always did. We invited 12 children from her school, ate pizza, played arcade games. Emma had more fun at that Chuck E. Cheese than she probably would have had on a luxury boat surrounded by strangers impressed with her father's money. But it was during this party that I had an important revelation. One of the mothers, Patricia, approached me. Mike, can I tell you something? I was worried when I heard about the lottery. Worried that Emma might change, you know? But she's still the same sweet and humble girl she always was. You're doing something right. Patricia didn't know about the family pressures, about the manipulative emails, about the unrealistic expectations. She just saw the result. A happy and well-adjusted child who hadn't been corrupted by wealth. The final breaking point came in the fall of 2023. My mother, who now lived in an $800,000 mansion and drove a new Mercedes, organized a family meeting to discuss joint investments. When I arrived, I found David, Jennifer, and even Sarah waiting in the living room of the mansion I had bought for my mother. Mike. Son, sit here, said my mother, as if it were an intervention. We've been talking about smart ways to use your luck to benefit the whole family. Long term, David had a folder full of documents. I researched some family investment opportunities. A software company in Chicago that needs $2 million in startup capital. Jennifer and I would be the administrators. In 5 years, we could triple the investment. And I found an incredible property in the Hamptons, added Jennifer. A summer house for the whole family to share. Only $4.2 million, and about Emma, said Sarah. I found an educational program in Switzerland. 2 years at an elite international school. It will prepare her for Harvard or Yale. It only costs $200,000 a year. They had planned everything. They had numbers, justifications, projections, and all involved my money financing their dreams. You just planned how to spend $8 million of my dollars without even asking if I was interested, Mike. It's family investment, said my mother. Family invests in family. Mom, you're living in a house I bought, driving a car I bought, with all your expenses paid by me. David makes $300,000 a year as a doctor. Jennifer is married to an engineer who makes $150,000. Sarah receives $3,000 a month in alimony. None of you are in need, but we can do more together, insisted David. No, you want me to do more for you. There's a difference. It was then that my mother said something that broke my heart, Michael. This money isn't just yours. It's a family blessing. God chose you to be the guardian of our family's prosperity. God chose me. Or did you decide it was God because it's convenient? I got up to leave. Where are you going? Asked Jennifer. I'm going home. Why home? That I pay for with my money that I won in my lottery. You're being selfish. Shouted David. No, David. For 36 years I was generous, understanding, and humble. Now, I'm being selective. And you didn't pass the test. I left that house knowing I had lost my family, but gained my dignity. In the following months, things got worse. David sued me, claiming I had verbally promised to invest in his company. Jennifer spread rumors about me being mentally unstable due to the trauma of winning the lottery. Sarah tried to get full custody of Emma, claiming my financial instability ironic. Considering I had more money than any judge had ever seen, was harmful to our daughter. My mother stopped talking to me completely. The woman who raised me to value integrity and family cut me out of her life because I refused to finance my siblings' luxury dreams. But you know what I discovered? Losing greedy people, even family members, was liberating. Emma continued spending half the weekends with me. She was beginning to understand the situation without me needing to explain sordid details. Daddy, Uncle David called me again, talking about that school in Switzerland. What did you tell him? I said I like my school here, and that I like living close to you. My daughter, at 10 years old, was more mature than the adults in my family. The year 2024 brought a lesson I never expected to learn. Sometimes losing the wrong people is the only way to find the right people. With my biological family practically cutting me out of their lives, I initially felt lost. But it was in this forced solitude that I began to build genuine relationships, something money had made possible, but my character had to earn. The first person to genuinely enter my life was Dr. Rebecca Chen, a psychologist specializing in people who had experienced sudden financial changes. Hassan had recommended I seek professional help, not because I was mentally unstable, but because big transitions need wise navigation. Mike, she said, in our first session, you're not crazy. You're going through a well-documented phenomenon called wealth-induced isolation. Your family can no longer relate to you as a person, only as a source of resources, but they're my family, biologically.
Yes.
Emotionally, family are the people who love you unconditionally, who celebrate your successes without expecting anything in return, who support you in difficult times without hidden agendas. These sessions helped me understand that the problem wasn't that I had changed, it was that my wealth had revealed who people really were beneath the mask of family love. It was during this therapy period that I met someone who would change my perspective on relationships. Maria Gonzalez, a public school teacher who was also doing therapy with Dr. Chen. We met in the waiting room and started talking. Casually, Maria had lost her husband in a car accident and was raising 2 children alone on a teacher's salary. She didn't know about my financial situation to her. I was just Mike, a divorced guy who was also trying to figure out how to be a better father. We started meeting for coffee after sessions. Maria talked about the challenges of being a single mother, about how hard it was to pay bills, about her dreams of giving her children a better education, but she never asked me for anything, never implied I should help. She treated me simply as a friend. When I finally told her about the lottery 3 months after we met, her reaction was surprising. WOW. That explains why you always seem so stressed when you talk about your family. Don't you want to ask me anything about the money? Like what? I don't know. Investments? Opportunities? Financial help? Maria laughed. Mike, you're my friend because you're a good person, not because you're rich. If you were an arrogant millionaire, I wouldn't be here having coffee with you, regardless of how much money you had. That was one of the most important conversations of my life. I had finally found someone who saw me as Mike, the man, not as Mike. The lottery winner, Emma, loved Maria when I introduced them. Not as a girlfriend, our relationship was still purely friendship at that point, but as daddies. Cool friend who understands about being a single parent? It was Maria. Who gave me the idea that would change everything, Mike? Have you ever thought about using your situation to do something really meaningful? I'm not talking about traditional charity, but about creating opportunities for people who really need them. How so? Well, you know how hard it is for working-class families to give their children quality education? And you understand that struggle because you've lived it? How about creating something that really makes a difference? That conversation planted the seed of what would become the Thompson Foundation for Educational Opportunity. Not a traditional foundation that just donates money, but something hands-on that really transforms lives. I started small. I identified 10 working families in Detroit whose children had exceptional academic potential, but didn't have resources for quality education. I didn't just pay private school tuitions. I created a complete program that included tutoring, mentorship, and college preparation. The first beneficiary was Marcus Williams, son of a single nurse who worked 2 jobs. Marcus was 14 years old and had an IQ of 140, but was in a rundown public school where his potential was being wasted. "Mr. Thompson," he said when we met, "my mother said you want to help me, but I don't understand why." "Because you remind me of myself, Marcus. Wasted potential due to lack of opportunity. But you're rich now. I'm rich now. But I grew up poor, worked as a welder, was underestimated by my own family. The difference between us is that I was lucky in the lottery. You'll be lucky through education. Working with Marcus and the other children in the program gave me a purpose that money alone never could. For the first time since winning the lottery, I was using my wealth in a way that really mattered. Emma was fascinated with the project, Daddy. You're like being the godfather to smart kids. Something like that, Princess? That's much cooler than buying expensive cars. Once again, daughter showed more wisdom than the adults around me. The foundation grew organically. In 6 months, it was supporting 50 families. In a year, it was 200. But I always kept the focus. Children from working families with exceptional potential who just needed opportunity. It was through the foundation that I met incredible people who became my true chosen family. Tony Castellano, my former supervisor, became director of operations. Hassan invested in some of the families we supported and became a board member. Maria started working as educational coordinator, and then something happened that I didn't expect. I fell in love with Maria, not for the drama or intensity of past relationships, but for the peace I felt in her presence, for the way she saw the best in me without expecting anything in return. When we started dating seriously, at the end of 2024, she asked a question that caught me off guard. "Mike, do you want me to sign a prenup?" "Why?" "Because I want to make sure you know I'm in love with you, not your money. I can sign any document that proves this." At that moment, I knew I had found the right person. Someone as committed to protecting our relationship from money corruption as I was. Emma loved the idea of Maria becoming an official part of our family. And Maria's children, 12-year-old Carlos and 8-year-old Sofia, connected with me immediately. Not as rich stepfather, but as Mike, the guy who played baseball in the backyard and helped with math homework. Meanwhile, my biological family continued their campaign of resentment. David had lost the lawsuit, but continued spreading stories about my mental instability. Jennifer declared bankruptcy, not out of real necessity, but apparently to try to force me to intervene financially. The saddest situation was with my mother. She still lived in the house I bought, drove the car I bought, had all her expenses paid by me, but hadn't spoken to me for more than a year. Occasionally, I received messages through Emma. "Grandma said she misses you, that you've changed too much." The irony was cruel. I hadn't changed. I had just learned to establish healthy boundaries. The moment of truth came at Christmas 2024. I decided to make one last attempt at reconciliation. I organized a party at my house and invited the entire biological family. I also invited my chosen family, Maria and her children, Tony and his wife, Hassan and his family, Dr. Chen, and several families from the foundation. David, Jennifer, and my mother showed up. But it was obvious they expected reconciliation on their terms. That is, an apology from me and a return to the status quo, where I financed their dreams without questioning. During dinner, while watching the two families interacting, the difference was glaring. My biological family talked about investments, missed opportunities, and how I should be using my money. My chosen family talked about the children's successes in the foundation, about plans to expand our programs, about how to better support each other. Emma, now 11 years old and more observant than ever, sat next to me during dessert. "Daddy, can I tell you something?" "Of course, princess. I like our new family better. Everyone seems happier." At that moment, I knew I had made the right choices. When my biological family left that night, without warm goodbyes, without future plans, just a tacit acceptance that we had chosen different paths, I felt a peace I hadn't experienced in years. Maria approached and held my hand. "How are you feeling?" "Free," I replied. "Finally free. Today, 3 years after winning the lottery, I can state with certainty, money was the greatest blessing of my life. It gave me financial freedom, the ability to be the father Emma deserves, and the resources to make a real difference in the lives of hundreds of families. But more important than that, money taught me the difference between people who love me and people who love what I can do for them. It forced me to establish healthy boundaries, to value authentic relationships, and to build a life based on purpose. Not just comfort, I lost my biological family, but gained a chosen family that loves me unconditionally. I lost relationships based on obligation, but built relationships based on mutual respect and genuine affection. The lottery didn't change me. It revealed who I really was beneath financial limitations. And more importantly, it revealed who the people around me really were beneath social masks. Emma is now 12 years old and is the most balanced child I know. She's not spoiled, despite technically being a multi-millionaire through the education fund I created for her. She understands the value of money, also understands that character is worth more than a bank account. Maria and I got married last year in a small ceremony, surrounded only by people who genuinely cared about us. It was the happiest celebration of my life. The Thompson Foundation now supports more than 500 families and has a waiting list of thousands. We achieved a 98% success rate. Children who left problematic public schools and are now graduating from prestigious universities. As is for my biological family, occasionally I receive updates through mutual acquaintances. David continues prosperous as a doctor, but apparently bitter about missed opportunities. Jennifer moved to Phoenix and rarely talks about me. My mother still lives in the house I bought, but developed a closer relationship with a neighbor whose son is a doctor, apparently found a new source of maternal pride. Sometimes, I feel sadness about losing these relationships, but I learned that lamenting people who see you as an ATM is wasted time. Better to invest energy in people who see you as a human being. Wealth didn't corrupt my life, it revealed the corruption that already existed in the relationships around me, and it gave me resources to build something better in its place. If you win the lottery tomorrow, remember this: money doesn't change who you are, but it shows who everyone else really is. Protect yourself, establish boundaries, never feel guilty about refusing to finance other people's greed. Money is a tool. It can build bridges or walls, depending on how you use it. I chose to build bridges with people who deserved it, and walls with people who didn't deserve it, and today, I can honestly say, I am richer in every sense that matters. If you enjoyed this story, like and subscribe to the channel to see more stories like this, and comment, what would you do if you won the lottery?